Okay, what's going on? Vincent Rapsardi, Big Blue on Bias.com. We have a lot to talk about. A lot has happened over the past week or so with the New York Football Giants. Before we get started, Manscaped.com, 20% off, plus free shipping with that beautiful promo code BBU, as in Big Blue on Bias, BBU. You get 20% off, plus free shipping. They have all kinds of stuff, okay? They have the Lawnmower 4.0, which came out not so long ago. They have the Weed Whacker. They have face razors and a lot of other cool stuff. Make sure to check them out, Manscaped.com. 20% off plus free shipping. Promo code BBU. Okay, let's get into New York Giants football. So a lot has happened over the past week. The Giants recently had their Fan Fest activity, which a lot of people were excited for, and I'm glad. I'm really glad to see that people are back. They're enjoying football. That's what it should be about. 29,000 people, I believe, attended the Fan Fest. And it was kind of cool. I'm back on Twitter, by the way, with Big Blue Unbiased, because I want to make sure that I'm still engaged in what's going on and being updated as consistently as I can be on the Twitter sphere. So Big Blue Unbiased is now on Twitter. I have bugs all over my desk. Florida is a very buggy place. So Big Blue Unbiased on Twitter if you guys want to follow me there. I know I had some people reach out and like, we want you to get back on Twitter. Get back on Twitter. All right, I'll get back on Twitter. So Big Blue Unbiased is where I'm at right now, and we'll continue the tweeting this season. So this Fan Fest happened. The Giants had a little bit of a practice. Not so much really happened. Some of the takeaways, there was some good, some bad. The Daniel Jones play, I'm sure most of you saw. If you are on Twitter, you can kind of see it here. I don't know what this was. It was kind of a breakdown of the offensive line. He would have gotten sacked most likely. And then he kind of just throws it at a linebacker. There's no receiver really in the area. It's one of those typical Twitter moments where people post this video and say, okay, this is bad. And everyone gets crazy and says that Daniel Jones is the worst quarterback that's ever lived. My take on Jones is we'll have to see this year. He's got a lot of weapons. If they all stay healthy, if the offensive line stays strong. The offensive line is an interesting area at this point because they're very thin on the offensive line. I think Andrew Thomas is going to have a really good year. He was, I believe, 5th in run block win rate among all tackles last year. His pass block win rate was not very good, but he improved more towards the end of the year. He had his struggles early on in his rookie season, but let's also remember that last year, it's really tough to judge a lot of players last year because of the limited activities, the limited camp, learning a new playbook with Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett. It's tough to truly assess the offense when you put in a new system and you're doing things through Zoom and you're not really getting the full training camp experience. And you got all these young players and then injuries. You lose your best playmaker in Barkley. But this is a big year, obviously, for Jones, for the Giants, and for their offensive line. Their unofficial first depth chart had Matt Parrott at right tackle, had Will Hernandez at right guard, Nick Gates at center, left guard Shane Lemieux, and at left tackle Andrew Thomas. Now, I think the Giants really want this group to work out. This is just essentially... I think a lot of fans are really rooting for this group for the obvious reason that they want to see their team do well and their offensive line do well, but these are homegrown kind of talents. Andrew Thomas was a first-round pick, Shane Lemieux was a fifth-round pick, Will Hernandez a second-round pick, Matt Parrott a third-round pick, and Nick Gates was an undrafted guy that they signed. So you want to talk about a homegrown offensive line. If these guys are even average, I know that people want them to be dominant and all these draft picks and all that. The Giants were not a very good pass-blocking team last year. They just need to be average. Maybe you don't want to hear that, but those are the facts. Because if the Giants defense continues doing what they did last year, remember they were a 6-win team last year, really should have been a 7-win team if Evan Engram catches a pass against Philadelphia. And they had an absolutely miserable offense. Absolutely miserable. So if that defense stays at that level, and I think is going to improve because of the addition of Adoree Jackson and Lorenzo Carter being healthy and Oshane Ximines being healthy and Xavier McKinney being healthy. You have all these guys, and I think Darnay Holmes is going to take another step. He's having a great camp from what I've heard. Rodarius Williams, he's having a great camp, a nice rookie addition. You're talking about a defense that was already good, could maybe be one of the best defenses in the NFL. I think there's a very strong possibility. They may have the best secondary in the NFL. And you look at Dexter Lawrence, another player. I recently tweeted this out. He improved on basically every major statistic in 2020 from his rookie season. You're talking about sacks, you're talking about pressures, you're talking about tackle for loss, missed tackle percentage went down, and that's a good thing. It went down. So he really improved last year, kind of went under the radar a little bit. He comes back for a third season, could have a big year. Leonard Williams played great last year. So you're looking at a group. Now you have Azeez Ojulari, a really interesting rookie pass rusher. You're looking at a defense that has the potential to be maybe a top 3 defense in the NFL. On paper. Doesn't mean there could be injuries, there could be players that don't perform. On paper, there's a very good chance that they're going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. So if the Giants' offense is just average, which they were not last year, they were arguably the worst, maybe one of the 2 or 3 worst offenses in the NFL. If they're average, which is a big improvement from basically the worst, you're looking at a 10-win team. You're looking at a playoff team. If they have an average offensive line, you're looking at a playoff team. On paper, that's how I would assess it at the moment. Obviously, Saquon Barkley's back. He's kind of doing some limited work, but it looks like he'll probably be ready to go. Kenny Golladay, he's doing some work on the side, but I think he'll be ready to go as well. Kadarius Toney doing some work on the side as well, but I think he'll be ready to go. He's kind of been slowly transitioned along. These are essentially 3 additions to the offense that they did not have last year because Barkley really didn't play. He was injured for most of the season. They didn't have Toney. They didn't have Golladay. These are huge additions to their offense. And Sterling Shepard, by the way, who was on pace for almost 90 catches, actually over 90 catches if he played 16 games last year. Don't sleep on Sterling Shepard. If he stays healthy, I think he's their cleanest wide receiver in terms of route running, hands, this and that. I think he's a really solid receiver. He's not the playmaker, the big time red zone threat of Kenny Golladay, but Sterling Shepard's a damn good wide receiver. Darius Slayton's a home run hitting wide receiver that I think could really have an impact this year when he's not the center of attention. You had Sterling Shepard miss some action this year. You didn't have Saquon Barkley really for the entire season. So Darius Slayton was really kind of their guy. There's a lot of attention put towards him. And so, teams are probably going to game plan a little bit more to stop him because he was the only real option. Now he's like arguably the 4th option. You can make a case. It's Golladay, it's Sterling Shepard, it's Kadarius Toney, and then it's Darius Slayton. Could be a big year for him. The pieces are all there. Their offensive line's a little bit thin at the moment. But at the end of the day, they stay healthy, they improve a little bit. Matt Parrott starts at right tackle. Will Hernandez has had his issues pass blocking. He's a good run blocking offensive guard. I think Andrew Thomas is going to be really good this year. I do. I have a real feeling he's going to be really good this year. Shane Lemieux, again, these guys don't need to be amazing. They just need to improve from last year. And if they're average, even if their offense is average, I think you're looking at a 10-win team. So a lot of big things that have happened over the past week or so. Like I said, the Fan Fest, some interesting plays from the quarterback, both good and bad. We saw Evan Engram drop a pass and get booed very loudly by Giants fans, which, let me just say this about Evan Engram. I'm very worried about, if I were the Giants, having him get meaningful snaps. I don't think serious teams give Evan Engram serious snaps. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't trust him. And it's not a talent thing. It's just, in terms of being a tight end, maybe it is a talent thing. I don't think that he's a real tight end. I've said that for years at this point. He's not a true tight end. But do you trust him? Do you trust him? You don't trust him. I know that you don't trust him. I don't trust him. Too many drop passes. I think when he was targeted a 55 passer rating last year, tip passes for interceptions, big drops. I think he had 11 or 12 drops last year. And over the course of his career, 13 receiving touchdowns for a tight end. A tight end is supposed to be a red zone threat, and he's clearly not. And he doesn't have good hands, and I think it's mostly in his head because he is a talented player. But man, I don't think serious teams give Evan Engram serious snaps. I wouldn't trust him. You're going to trust him on a third down to make a big catch? I'm not. And I know this is only a practice, but that is not a good. That's not a good look. That's not a good look. I'm sorry. I'm done with Evan Engram. I would have gotten rid of him this past offseason. I'm usually a person, I like trading. If I'm going to trade a player, I'm going to wait till their value is high so I can get a good return. I don't like getting rid of players when their value's low and they may have some upside. But Evan Ingram's a guy I'm like, I'll move on. I would have gotten rid of him this past offseason because I just think it's all in his head, and I would not trust him in big situations. Devontae Booker apparently fumbled in the practice, got booed a little bit. He's still their RB2 according to Dan Duggan of The Athletic. Corey Clement's there. Gary Brightwell, their rookie running back, he's also there. So there are some options. And just one final thing. It's so weird, honestly, watching the Giants and not seeing Eli Manning on the field. You know, you saw him at the Fan Fest, and he was talking, and he was on TV, on there, whatever it was. He was doing all these different media appearances and whatnot. But it's just weird. You know, I started watching football in 2003. So Eli came into the NFL in 2004. And so I basically, the entire time that I watched football and the NFL and the Giants, Eli Manning was always a part of everything. Every training camp that I went to, any game that I went to, it was always Eli. Just think how many years that is, from 2004 until 2019 when he retired. That's a long time. You basically grow up with the guy on the team, and he's not like he's the long snapper. He was the quarterback. So it's weird. It's still weird not seeing Eli on the field and not being a part of training camp and not being a part of all these different activities. It's odd. I'm not going to lie. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. It's just a little bit weird. I know I've been very honest about Eli over the years, so people think I hate him. I certainly don't hate Eli. Eli was my favorite player growing up. But I think my job here is to give you guys as much information as possible and be as honest as I can. And so I'll finish with this. Daniel Jones, there's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of people that are not sold, understandably so. But now, I think the Giants have done everything that they possibly can to put this quarterback in a position to succeed. And now it's on him. They have a very talented running back who, let's not forget, caught 91 passes as a rookie in Saquon Barkley. They go out and get a Plaxico Burress type wide receiver. They use a first-round pick on another wide receiver in Tony. You have Shepard, who's a highly paid wide receiver. He's paid fairly well. You have Darius Slayton, another good player, guy who's a fifth-round pick who has developed. You have a top 5 pick in Andrew Thomas as the left tackle. You have Matt Parrott, a third-rounder. You have Will Hernandez, a second-rounder. You have pieces. They signed Kyle Rudolph. Although I'm not a fan of Evan Engram, he's a talented player who could flash in certain moments. I wouldn't have him on the roster, but I'm not going to lie, he's talented. He's a talented player. He can certainly make plays once in a while. It's all up to the quarterback. He's in a great spot. Second year in this offense. Last year was tough with the COVID restrictions and the weird training camp and the Zoom camp and all that. Big year for Jones.